Hello.
Hey there.
Hey there. All right, we have a lot to talk about. Um, I am because we have a lot of um, details that have to be managed carefully. I'm just going to, at the top of the hour, just give a very quick update as to what happened with the scam. We had agreed a deal which we're going to honor with the membership as well, um, so that the members would have exactly the same terms as this party. And um, they put money in escrow, so funds were locked up. And then we wired the rock only to discover that the funds that were put in escrow were actually counterfeit. So that was the scam. And apparently there's been a spate of counterfeiting in Spain. We were unaware of that until after it happened. I can give more details in a subsequent meeting, but that's essentially the bare bones of it. Now, what have we done to remedy the situation? What was done to remedy the situation was, first we contacted all the exchanges. So Qcoin has blocked the addresses used by the scammers, so they can't go to Qcoin to trade. We've alerted as many other dexes as we possibly can to make sure that they don't allow for trading. In addition, we went to Etherscan and we made sure that the address where the scammers are keeping the rock is flagged as a scam. So the scammers, as you can see, have been unable to move the rock. They haven't moved the rock at all, and that's basically where they're going to stay stuck. We do not want in this call to go over any other discussion about this. In private discussions, we can talk about strategy and those kinds of things, but we're not going to discuss that here. I just want to be clear. The other piece of the puzzle is, of course, as soon as we go to mainnet, those rocks will not be honored. We are tracking those rocks very, very carefully, and they will not be honored. So and mainnet is coming up very, very rapidly. So this is mostly, and I really want people to understand, this is mostly just a nuisance. They've painted themselves into a corner. And I contacted the FBI. We have a special relationship with the FBI because of what happened in December of 2017, I think it was, or 2018, when the co-op was attacked. Yeah, 2018, I think. Anyway, so that created we opened a file on that, and so we were able to contact them directly, and a report has been filed. We also filed the report with the local authorities, and we have a passport photo. So even in the event that the passport is fake, the photo itself is actually a photo of the perpetrator. So they're kind of stuck, and with a noose tightening around them pretty quickly. So I will not discuss any further details on this or field any questions about this. I have given you the facts of the case. I've reported that in the announcements, and if you just Google, you will see that unfortunately there has been a recent spate of counterfeiting in Spain, and unfortunately that's what happened here. So with that, again, won't field any questions about this until the closed door session on Friday, or in private communications. So with that, I will move over to the technical updates.
Sure. Thanks, Greg. Hey,
Sure.
everyone. Happy Wednesday to you. I'm putting a link to the worksheet that I'm going to speak to here in the chat window and sharing my screen. All right. Okay. So here we are. We are working in our current sprint. Our priorities are we've finished fixing the Casper tests, so we're really closing out on that. Converting to the updated RSpace, also very much closing in on that. Launch of testnet 2, a little bit of work there still to do, and then working on Casper to support slashing. That work is very much started. Pleased to have released 9.3 last week. We did update testnet with 9.3, and work is in progress towards 9.4. In terms of timing of 9.4 release, my intent is to release that as we are ready to launch testnet 2 and all of the features that go into that. In terms of testnet 2 and what you can expect, please do take a look at the link here, the RChain public testnet information page that will tell you more about what testnet 2 is and what we're working on to be able to deliver that and our timeline for that. Community test, we are having a community test tomorrow. That's Thursday at 1400 UTC. We are still discussing what exactly we're going to do there. There's a couple options. NetZipper, I see you're on the call. One of those options is to take a deep dive into what we've been observing in testnet over the past few days, particularly as it relates to the validators and their functionality and the script that you're running in particular. So we might take a bit of a deep dive there if you're available. And then we have some other ideas as well, but I don't have a firm can't tell you exactly what we're going to be doing tomorrow, but we are meeting and you're welcome to join us, whether or not you're a node operator or just a passionate observer. Happy to have everyone there. A little bit on consensus. A lot of this is stuff that I've talked about over the past week or so. So first and foremost, we have started work on the implementation of validator slashing. That the first PR is open, and more to come in that space. Work continues to address invalid repeat deploy. The second PR is now open, and that PR is to help continue the investigation of this particular bug. We saw it a lot in testnet a while ago. We're not seeing it as much now. I don't think. The last time I looked, I haven't seen it in a while. So it's kind of a pesky little bug. Also, the work is completed to fix the ignorable equivocation error that we were also observing in testnet. That PR is in, it's merged, and in dev, which means it's not yet in testnet, I believe. What's a typo there? The work is in progress to investigate an issue related to, we're testing the Genesis ceremony, specifically to test Genesis ceremony in a scenario where we would like to include rock balances for the purpose of issuing rev. And that's very much a big part of the Mercury launch. In doing that, testing, we have a bug, and it's a little tricky. We're trying to see if the validators can get the approved block that includes those rock balances. So that work is in progress. And we're also still investigating issues on testnet of the inability of some nodes to receive the Genesis block. If you're a node operator and you're using testnet, you may observe some new log messaging happening in your node related to a request and a receipt of the Genesis block. You can observe yourself requesting it. You can also observe logs saying that you didn't receive it. And that's just all going into our continued investigation of getting that Genesis block on testnet. We have a little bit more work to do in terms of cost accounting to bring it into our testnet 2 launch. Excuse me, and that is captured here in our RChain 3281. Basically, it's taking what we're already doing in terms of gas payments and compute and adding it to replay compute state. And so those are the next steps. We're going to be talking a little bit more with the dev team about the specifics of that work and making sure to prioritize it as quickly as possible. The R node team is investigating an issue that we are observing killing nodes in our CI infrastructure, as well as when devs are running integration tests locally. We're not seeing this on testnet right now, which leads me to believe it's something going on in the state of dev. But it's a big deal. You don't want your nodes to die with this issue, so we are looking into that. Oh man, I did some horrible cutting and pasting here, community. I will fix this before the end of today. This RChain 3138 does not belong here. That's very much an RSpace thing, and that's what's happening there. The other thing, and what this ticket should be pointing to, is the work that Sebastian has done to investigate how peering is working in our implementation of Kademlia. And so again, Kademlia is the table that helps manage the peering of nodes across a network. And we wanted to use simulations to make sure it's doing the things that we think it ought to be doing, and to look for instances where it's not, as a way to improve the Kademlia implementation to support better peering across a network. And the reason you want better peering, obviously, is the more balanced peering is, the more the, the shorter the hop between peers, it just increases your ability to send and receive messages. And if you've been a participant on testnet from time to time, you may have had a node that appeared to not peer well, and you know the pain of not being well peered and not being able to catch up to the state of the network or to send and receive blocks. So what you're seeing here under 100 nodes. Sebastian did a modeling of 100 nodes, and in our current implementation of Kademlia, it's very nice. And nice here means we have a very symmetrical shape. We can see the red dots indicating nodes, the green dots indicating clicks, and then this blue dot indicating kind of an all-up connection between clicks and nodes. And you can see that between any one node, there's typically about 3 or 4 hops, and that's a nice place to be. So everything looks good at 100 nodes. We shift to 1,000 nodes and things look a little bit differently. And I will open up this so you can see maybe a little bit better. So again, this is 1,000 nodes, looking at peering in our current implementation of Kademlia. And what you'll notice first off is what we don't have is a very symmetrical shape. So that's first off not super news. And then also you'll notice that for some nodes, these little red dots here at the end, they're very far in terms of clicks to the center, which in this diagram is actually right here. And so this isn't ideal. And what we discovered is that the way that the Kademlia implementation works right now is that you ask for peers in the same order every single time. And so what that means is by having the strict order, you get these kind of asymmetrical shapes. Versus if we make a change in our implementation of Kademlia, and so what this diagram here is, if we changed how we currently use Kademlia and implement a feature that Sebastian calls shuffling, where we shuffle the order of nodes as they connect, as they peer through the Kademlia protocol, we do now then achieve, again, at 1,000 nodes, a very nice symmetrical shape that's showing a nice distribution of nodes across the network and among one another. So this is absolutely based on the, as a result of the simulation work that Sebastian did last week, certainly a change that we are going to move forward with. It would be an optimization of Kademlia, and it certainly would benefit node operators and the network at large to make this change. We also have more work to do related to the simulating how Kademlia is performing. This doesn't, these diagrams that you're looking at and the write-up that Sebastian did doesn't address all the issues. So there's certainly more work to do, but it do want to call out that the ability of using simulations in this type of scenario helps us to achieve some optimizations that will benefit the network. And so that's really grateful for his work in that space. When I update this page, I will put a link to his ticket right here. That's what should be here. And you can take a deep dive if you're interested into his write-up. It's very well done, and I found it very interesting. You might too. The RSpace team is really wrapping up on that long-term fix work that they've been doing over the past few weeks. There's a PR that is, last PR from Dom is in review. Wukash is trying to wrestle replay into the new world order. But we're very much looking forward to start playing with that in our development testnet, and then make sure that it's ready for you guys in testnet too. We are investigating the issue that we're seeing in testnet of our RChain validators are running out of storage space. We're having to kill them. I think there's been 3 reboots related to this issue over the past 5 days. The good news is the SRE team's monitoring system is working extraordinarily well. Tomasz is just right on top of this as we hone in on running out of space. He is getting the messages. They're being very responsive, and they're rebooting testnet very quickly. If you're a testnet user, you're seeing that information in the channel. We are doing our best to alert you as soon as we can that reboot is getting ready to happen. But of course, that's not what we want. We don't want to be rebooting testnet on the regular. So we are investigating what's causing this, and to look at what's happening on the testnet, and also the errors and the challenges that our validators are experiencing. As an interim fix, Tomasz plans later today, if he hasn't already, to reboot testnet with a larger map size to help support perhaps testnet running longer than it has been over the past few days. So if you are a testnet user, many thanks for your patience as we do that. And we have prioritized the investigation of this issue to resolve it as quickly as possible. CI, we are upgrading drone as soon as I can free Tomasz up of testnet work, and that will help our development team get things done a little bit faster. Looking forward to that. And then also to confirm related to Rev issuance, we did last week bring up a co-op owned Ethereum node, and we'll be using that to pull rock balances and to create that file that would go into the Genesis block to issue Rev at Genesis. And then we are also investigating those challenges, as I mentioned, related to the Genesis ceremony. I mean, in short, what's happening is we can include a file that has not all of the rock balances, but a chunk of them. The Bootstrap node does validate that block. It does send the block out. And for reasons unknown, the validators are receiving the block, they're sending their approval, but the Bootstrap node is not processing that approval. So without that approval, of course, the network doesn't launch. That's kind of at a very high level, the bug we're investigating. You can take a deep dive into that ticket if you're very interested, but suffice to say, it's a priority, it's important. We need to be able to demonstrate the ability to do this and to do it over and over again as we work towards the Mercury launch. That is the extent of my update for today. I'm happy to take any questions.
Hey, Kelly, it's Ed.
Hey, Ed.
Great update, and thanks to you and the dev team for your focus and great progress each week. I had a question about last week. You mentioned status of wallet, and the status said with the completion of the wallet implementation. Can you elaborate on the state of what you meant by the completion of wallet implementation?
Yes, and I want to make sure that I get it right, so bear with me, Ed. When I said the completion of the wallet, in terms of the fundamental components that go into building a wallet, and the ability to be able for token holders to have tokens and to move them from wallet to wallet. That's what I mean in terms of the completion. It's the completion of the components. Now, what's not included in that, and I want to be really clear on that, is the delivery of a multi-sig wallet. That is still work that's on the backlog. Chris and I were talking about that earlier today in terms of getting that prioritized and into the next sprint. I think that's it.
Yeah, the one feature on the simpler vault contracts is history and the ability to see history. I'm really curious about that. If there's a backlog ticket, I'd like to see it.
Okay.
We do in fact have history. That was what was the whole point of the redesign. So
yeah, I just don't know how to use it, or I don't see anything in the contracts that make it easy to get to from an app perspective.
Okay. I'll reach out to the dev that were responsible, and we'll make sure.
Yeah, that's an excellent question, because that's what I always tell the team, Ed. If I can't do it, it's not real yet, and I don't know how to do that either.
Yeah, cool. And then
if I could just chime in on that one, I don't think when we talk about history, what we never talked about the API layer for wallet implementers to access that history. So that would be something we'd have to add.
Yeah, in the features markdown, there's a user story there about as something like as a wallet user, I want to see the history through the co-op applied command line wallet.
Yeah,
go ahead, Greg.
No, I was saying, I mean, the whole point of the conversations we had in Poland was to add the history feature. If we can't get to the history, it's as if it doesn't exist. So there has to be an API, but it's a relatively simple thing because we know that we're logging every single one
Yeah,
of
we
those.
just need to clarify whether history, because what we chatted about was having the ability to retrospectively look at the chain and audit the history of all the transfers. And we
Yeah.
talked about community members maybe coming to the table and building such tooling. So
Mhm.
if we're going to add like an actual wallet grab history feature, that's different than what we talked about before. So we just need to clarify that part of the requirement.
Yeah,
Sure. Yeah,
very,
we can
very
do that.
curious. And then Kelly also, or Chris, on the user interface that the co-op will generate and support um, for the user experience for wallets, will that be limited to the scripts that were demonstrated, about 4 weeks ago or so, or will there be a command line kind of a wallet beyond the scripts?
The short answer, Ed, is I don't know. My understanding is
Mhm.
what's delivered is the command line wallet.
Yeah,
Okay,
there is a ticket, Kelly, for adding the command line features.
Okay.
So, and we need to have that done before mainnet. So yes, that will be part of it.
okay. Thanks, Chris. Thanks,
Okay.
Kelly.
Cool. Thank you. Anything else? Okay. Thanks for the time.
Awesome. So let's see, we're at about 22 minutes. We have a couple of other nice items. In particular, as I announced in the announcements channel, we took some time. Mike Stay and I have taken the time to go through the Express SOS 2017 reviewers' comments again and fix the typos that they found there, which resulted in it was all just typos, but we had to go fix a bunch of equations related to the one typo that's kind of rippled throughout, and that's been done. We've reposted the updated draft to archive. Christian Williams, who's also a researcher on RChain, has gone through that draft. We found a few minor grammatical things that we went ahead and fixed, and that's been resubmitted for publication. So we're quite based upon the reviewers' comments from Express SOS, who they said the writing was of consistently high quality, and they encouraged us to go and fix the typos. So we feel that this version of the paper should pass muster in terms of publication, and that will be an important milestone because what it does is remove some of the technical details around binders. So if we that opens up two avenues for ladle with respect to the binding phenomena. So we can go the route that Christian Williams has been investigating um, with the nominal theories, and we can go the route with the combinator stuff that Mike and I did, which is a simpler approach. So either approach now is available for use by the ladle algorithm. So that's a significant win. And we will be doing a deep discussion about that tomorrow morning on the RCast podcast, and that will be up hopefully by this week or beginning of next. Okay, so with that, I think we've had most of the updates. On the business side, I spent a lot of time in Shanghai talking to um, a group that manages several exchanges around the world, and we are in the process of working through the details of what it would take to get the Rev listed on what it would take to get the Rev listed on those exchanges. So one of the things that they were concerned about, and fortunately we passed muster here, at least in discussion, They were concerned that since we're a U.S. company, what the issues might be with respect to getting the rev listed. They were proposing that we set up an alternative company, and then the rev would go. There would be, yeah, the rev would essentially go in through that alternative company before listing in their exchanges. But then when they discovered that as a part of the private sale, we kept a history of all U.S. investors and made sure that all U.S. investors were indeed accredited investors. Um, then and that evidence was documented in our response to the DFI. That was sufficient for them, at least in conversation, to go forward with that with that path without having to do setting up an alternative company to flow the rev through. So at least in principle, that issue has been addressed, and so there is a path forward for those exchanges. We're also, of course, approaching several other exchanges as well to get the rev listed, and now is the time. Actually, many months ago would have been the time to have these conversations, but we've had a lot on our plate. But now, for sure, is the time, because we're as soon as we get through the test net and hardening phase, then we are at a point where we need our node software to be running in those exchanges so that they can plug it in either under an API or through whatever mechanisms they offer to plug in our node software. So that's why we're spending a lot of time now talking to various groups who are running exchanges. It has also raised an interesting avenue that I would like for the membership to begin to contemplate, which is there is a lot of movement in the market around exchanges. So the Binance model is an example that people should be looking at. It would be interesting for RChain to have a relationship where the RChain technology is sitting underneath one of these exchanges. Now, this is very complicated in the US because such an entity would have to go and apply for a broker-dealer license and all of that. So, but that doesn't mean that we couldn't partner with someone who already has gone through the compliance to set up an RChain based exchange where RChain is the underlying technology for that exchange. So this is something that I would like the membership to consider because it's yet another an important application functionality that proves out the technology, but also has considerable market interest at this point. This came up in discussions in Shanghai repeatedly, and so it's something that I would like for the membership to consider as something that the co-op would do, as opposed to some other party, in the sense that the co-op would have to take an active role um, as a partner in such an engagement. So that's, the people should be talking about that and thinking about that, and whether or not that's a good move. I know the membership has been often divided on applications that while there's a solid business argument for it, the membership has been uh, more skeptical about those kinds of things. So now would be the time to discuss these kinds of things before we need to take any further steps. Any questions on any of what I just said? Okay, silence is golden. Unless there are any other questions from the membership or anyone here on the call, I think we're good for this community update.
Bye, everyone.